So this begins Module 2 in CSCI 5000 Data Management. And for this module, we're going to focus on Microsoft Excel and how we can use spreadsheets to manage some of the data that we get in our day-to-day experiences. So first things first, we're going to look at Excel itself as a tool, and we're also going to look at how to import data, format that data, and calculate based on the data that we've imported in Excel. So let's get started. First is just a simple overview of spreadsheets and how those are laid out, how they work. And a lot of this might be review for you, and that's okay because reviews are important, but it will kind of highlight some of the important concepts that we're going to discuss a little bit later when we talk about relational databases. So the basic definitions, in the old days, a spreadsheet was a piece of paper with rows and columns for recording financial data for use in comparative analysis. Well, it's not a piece of paper anymore, it's not a ledger sheet, but we do have now a software interface that has an interactive grid of cells and they're arranged in rows and columns, and data and formulas are entered into that software so that you can use it for analysis and presentation. So here's a basic overview. If we consider the blue box on the outside as a workbook, we can start to kind of see this idea. So in Excel, we have the things known as tabs across the bottom, and the technical term for those tabs are worksheets. So a workbook can contain a set of worksheets within it. And each of those worksheets consists of a row and a column, and the intersection of a row and a column is known as a cell. So that's the pictorial representation, but let's look at this in text. So a workbook is a collection of worksheets. A worksheet is a single spreadsheet that is arranged in a grid of cells in rows and columns. A column is a vertical group of cells, and in Excel they are labeled using alphabetical characters, so A, B, C, D, and so forth. A row is a horizontal group of cells in a worksheet that is labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4 down the left side. And a cell is an individual location within a spreadsheet within a specific column and on a specific row. So those are labeled with the column name followed by the row number. So in Excel, this is the typical layout. So here we see tabs across the top. And in Microsoft Excel, we have a ribbon, and each of those ribbons is tied to the tabs across the top. So each tab has a different ribbon associated with it. The name box here on the left shows us which cell we have selected. Then you have a formula bar, which shows you details of the contents of a particular cell. So we notice here that the column that is highlighted is column G, and the row that is highlighted is row 2. So the intersection of those two would be known as cell G2. The cell that is selected on the right is cell N, and it looks like, if we trace to the left, 7. So N7. This is where I was talking about the tabs across the bottom. These are worksheets, individual worksheets that are making up the workbook. And then we have the status bar just underneath that, followed by the display options and the zoom control. So you can zoom in and out of your particular worksheet. Up next, we think about what we can enter into a particular cell. So each cell can have a range of options located inside it. So we see that we have text values on the left side. These are all text values in column A. because they simply type words into a particular cell. And then the same is true for the range from B1 all the way to E2. These are just words. So another thing that we can have in cells are numeric values. So this range in the middle from cell B3 all the way down to, it looks like D11, all of these are just numeric values. So these are physically typed numbers that someone has put into this spreadsheet. Now, formula results are something else that we can see. So if you notice up here in B14, so if we select cell B14, which says 33%, but if you look in the formula bar, we can see that that is actually a formula result that's displaying 33% based on this calculation. So it's taking the value in cell B12, which is here, and it's dividing it by E12, which is here. So that means that 33% of the total revenue came in January for quarter one. Another thing we can do, and this is an example of this as well, this formula contains references to two particular cells. It contains a reference to B12, and it contains a reference to E12, and it uses those references to grab the values stored there and to do a calculation with it. So you can reference other cells in the same worksheet. You can also, in more complex spreadsheet situations, reference cells in a different worksheet, so another tab across the bottom of your screen. Or in even more sophisticated systems, you can reference cells in another entirely different workbook. So not just local to the file that you're working in, but you can also reference cells in another file outside of that location. So here are some more examples of formulas. So formulas are not necessarily just calculations. Formulas are also function names. So we can say is number A2. So this is checking the value that's stored in cell A2, and it's returning a result that says is it a number or not. So here the result is true. It's checking is number for text only. Text only is a named range or a named cell, and it's false, so there's no, whatever range this is evaluating to, there isn't anything associated with it there. And if we continue down, is number, search B4A4. So B4A4. It's searching for both of these, and B4 and A4 are both numeric, so the result there is true. So, and this is an example of a nested function where you have a function inside a function, and that's perfectly okay. Typically, it would evaluate what's inside first and then what's outside. So here we're searching for B5 and A5, so B5 here and A5 here. Both of those together are not numbers, so the result there would be false. This one says if there's a number in A6, then what you would do is multiply the value from A6 times 100. Otherwise, if this A6 value is not a number, then display no number. So no number is the result here because A6 does not have a number in it. The other result here is if A7 is a number, which is true, then we want to multiply the value A7 by 10. So 456 times 10, and that's the value that we would display there. But if this contained a text value, we would simply display no number. This is a formula called sum product. If A3 through A6, A3 through A6 is a number times 1 is greater than 1, so that returns false. So anyway, we can get into these a little more later, but this is just to show you that we can use formulas and functions to help us out with Excel quite a bit. So here's another example where Excel is referencing from another worksheet. So if we look in sheet 1 and sheet 2, here we see that the value in this particular cell, cell A2 on sheet 2, is referencing sheet 1's B2 through B6 range. Now sheet 1 in ABC file is referencing this particular file, main file, but it's referencing sheet 2 in that main file, and it's cell A2. So here. So we see that the values match because this is a direct reference to this cell right here.